Now, on Inside California Politics, the only prominent Democrat in the recall race faces a few of his Republican challengers for the first time.
I am polling better than all three candidates.
Why Kevin Paffrath says he's the only candidate with new detailed plans to change California.
And Republican candidate Caitlyn Jenner is calling for frontrunner Larry Elder to drop out of the race.
How he treats women, it's not right.
Why Jenner says she's the best candidate to protect the women of California.
Broadcasting across the Golden State, this is Inside California Politics.
Thanks for joining us for Inside California Politics. I'm Frank Buckley in Los Angeles.
And I'm Nikki Lorenzo in Sacramento.
This week, drama surrounding the recall ballots mailed out to every Californian registered to vote. Voters expressed concern after receiving recall ballot envelopes with holes in them. And some of the holes can even expose a voter's answer to one of the questions on the ballot. Elections officials say these holes exist for different reasons depending on the county. Some are placed so visually impaired voters know where to sign. Others to help identify that the ballot has been removed from the envelope and filled out. The California Association of Clerks and Elections Officials says mailing in your ballot is a safe and secure way to vote. But if you have concerns, you can always vote in person when polls open on September 4th. So far, Political Data Inc.'s recall ballot return tracker shows more than 2 million ballots have been turned in. That's about 13% of the number of ballots mailed out ahead of the recall election. More than 19 million ballots still have yet to be returned.
Also this week, YouTuber Kevin Paffrath, who is running as a Democrat in the recall election, participated in his first gubernatorial debate. On Wednesday, Paffrath faced off for the first time against Republicans Kevin Kiley, Kevin Faulconer, and John Cox. He joins us now to talk about why Californians should vote to recall Governor Newsom and why he's the best candidate to replace him. Kevin, you are the prominent Democrat running on the recall side. You've described yourself as a JFK Democrat. Some of your positions are to cut taxes, address homelessness. Also, you're not for statewide mandates when it comes to COVID. What separates you from some of the Republicans who are running? Because it seems like they have similar positions.
Yeah, the similar positions of the Republicans are, let's just get in day one and start undoing the policies that exist. That's a great way, first of all, to really upset the California legislature, which is 75% Democratic. Great way to make sure Republicans are going to get nothing done for the next year until the 2022 election. Day one, my focus is on making sure that we tackle COVID from all angles. We do not have a statewide requirement, recommendation, mandate, or anything around HEPA filtration right now. That's very bad. Every building, especially our schools where children can't even get vaccinated yet, should have HEPA filtration requirements. I believe those sorts of mandates should come from the governor's office.
Okay, so you had your first debate performance this past week. One of the recall candidates, Republican former San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer, talked about you and your lack of experience. We're going to listen to that and talk about it on the other side.
It's not the time for on-the-job training for YouTube. Somebody that's never actually had to get legislation across, actually had to get the units constructed and built, and actually take the stance to get housing constructed in California. I think that's a clear difference between you and me, my friend.
Okay, so let's talk about that. You have no political experience. How would you govern a state of 40 million people?
I think it's hilarious because what came right before that was me exposing Kevin Faulconer for robbing his city of $115 million on a real estate project, as the San Diego Audit Board reported and the Associated Press reported on. Right after that, I also thought it was ridiculous that the only claim they have against me is, oh, here's somebody who hasn't worked in politics. Well, let me tell you this. The last thing California needs right now is another politician. We have too much political baggage and too much lobbying money pushing incentives in California, and there's a reason why nothing's changing in the state. What we need is somebody like me who has Californian solutions, not a far leftist or far rightist, but someone with common sense solutions who can work on solving homelessness and then negotiate with the legislature.
You mentioned the 3,000 hours of law enforcement hours. In what capacity was that?
Yeah, so I was a volunteer. I would go on supporting rides with law enforcement officers, and I've built relationships with officers, so I would regularly go with individuals, and I would help them with arrests, domestic violence, traffic, homelessness. anything that an officer would be called out for. We'd dust for fingerprints, we'd go to traffic scenes and so on and so forth.
With what agency? Was it in LA? Was it with the county?
So Davie, Florida, where the bulk of my hours were collected, and then Oxnard, California.
Okay, so in your closing remarks in the debate, you asked that the Republican challengers drop out of the race. Let's take a listen to that.
And since I am polling the best of the candidates on this debate stage, I would ask them to drop out of the race and endorse me, Kevin Paffrath, on the second part of the ballot so we can defeat Larry Elder and bring bold change to California.
Okay, so you mentioned defeating Larry Elder, but also one of your reasons was because you are a Democrat, and considering the supermajorities in the legislature, Democrats would be possibly more inclined to work with you than they would one of the Republican candidates. Have you spoken to a Tony Atkins or an Anthony Rendon?
No, I've not spoken with them. I've spoken with other assemblymen, women, and senators within the state. And here's the beautiful thing. We have to look at this broadly. We have a 75% supermajority in California. We've never had this. Under Schwarzenegger, we were at 64%. That means a Republican governor could actually still veto something. But there's so much control in Congress, we can make big plans happen if we have strong, bold visions and new leadership. And that's what I bring. I think it's a wonderful opportunity. And Democrats are going to want to win in 2022. And so they would want to hand wins to a Democrat in 2021. If a Republican gets in, my fear is that any executive action they take, any appointments they try to make, or any vetoes they make will get sandbagged by the legislature, because the legislature can overturn all three of these. And all they have to do is sandbag them through the primaries in June and then the election next year, and they could get a Democrat right back. I really think if we get a Republican governor, we end up with a lame duck governor, and we lose a year of progress in California.
Kevin Paffrath, unfortunately, we are out of time. Appreciate you giving us some time here on Inside California Politics.
Thank you so much for having me. Full plan at beatkevin.com.
Coming up, Caitlyn Jenner says she's the best candidate to protect the women of California. Her latest comments on GOP frontrunner Larry Elder and why she says he needs to drop out. Governor Newsom and several of his Republican rivals are now taking aim at radio host Larry Elder, who is so far polling the best among the recall candidates. One of them is Caitlyn Jenner. Capitol insider Ashley Zavala spoke with Jenner this week about why she believes Elder is not fit to be governor.
I want to start with kind of the latest from your campaign. You are one of the latest candidates to urge Larry Elder to drop out of this race. Why is that?
Because like Gavin Newsom in so many ways, he's a hypocrite. We know that about Gavin Newsom. But we're learning more and more about Larry Elder. I've known Larry for years, and I commend him for getting out and getting in this race. It's not easy to do. But I've only known him as a very right-wing conservative talk show host. I never knew anything about Larry Elder, the person. Now, to be governor, there's more than just the economy and taking a conservative approach. Obviously, I have the same feelings. We need less government, less taxes, less regulations, a pro-business environment. I get that. But Larry Elder as a person, I never knew anything about. And I kept asking, who is Larry Elder? And we're finding out more about him, how he treats women. It's not right. His ex-fiancée went on camera to say, basically, I just want people to know who they're voting for, and had nothing good to say about him, not even close. And if that is true, he's made other statements about women, and if that is true, he's not the type of person that we want as governor of this state.
So with that, and more specifically, what would you do to support and protect women should you take office?
Kids have been out of school for a year, missed an entire year of learning, and that's the reason this recall has happened. These women have stood up, strong women. I am 100% behind what they're doing. We need to not only just protect women, but we need to give them the best opportunity to succeed. And right now, the tax structures, we are the worst state in the nation as far as a business-friendly environment. We need to change those type of things. But realizing that women are an integral part of our state is extremely important.
So we've heard from some of the other candidates on some of the existing vaccine mandates or those that might go into effect statewide. How would you handle the pandemic and some of these mandates should you take office?
First of all, there's a delicate balance between the science and the economy and the people of this state. And how do you balance that? Right now, Gavin Newsom has done a terrible job in doing that because everything's been based around taking care of special interests, the teachers union. I mean, they kind of dictate what happens in the school system. That has to change. Other governors have done it different ways. Obviously in Florida, a good example, Disney World opened up over a year ago last July. And a year later, finally, Disneyland in Anaheim finally opens up. Jobs were lost. Hotels were just devastated. And Disneyland, obviously, the same thing happened here. There's different ways to do that. And so, to be honest with you, that's why this recall is happening, because he's been very incompetent when it comes to handling the economy. He's all about special interest. I mean, another thing, I was down at the border the other day, and with great Border Patrol people. And the first thing they said to me is, "Thank you for coming down here. Gavin Newsom has never been to the southern border." I'm going, are you kidding me? Governor of the state of California for the last 3 years, and he's never been to the southern border. It's just, the guy's got to go.
Coming up, weighing in on Governor Newsom's campaign strategy just weeks away from the recall election, Democratic strategist Gary South joins us for analysis.
Weeks away from the recall, Governor Newsom is changing his campaign strategy to target the GOP frontrunner Larry Elder. Democratic strategist Gary South, who is the senior strategist to Governor Gray Davis during the 2003 recall, joins us now to discuss what he believes Governor Newsom should focus on ahead of Election Day. Gary, Governor Newsom is now actively campaigning against the recall. One of his most prominent supporters when it comes to paid media is Senator Elizabeth Warren. She might energize the liberal wing of the Democratic Party, but a quarter of California voters are not affiliated with either party. Is Elizabeth Warren the right strategy to get them to vote no?
Well, there have been a lot of Democrats who've come out against the recall. I mean, Elizabeth Warren has had an ad that's been on the air, but, on the recall front, we're out of the theoretical stage. We're now into the real stage because ballots are being returned and tracked. And as of this morning, if you're following this, almost 3 million ballots are already in. And Democrats are returning their ballots at an even stronger pace than they did in the 2020 presidential election. In fact, of the almost 3 million votes that are in, ballots that are in, 1.5 million of them are Democratic, versus 650,000 Republican ballots. Now that disparity may even out over time because we know that a lot of Republicans like to vote in person. But these numbers are very strong for the no side, and they give the lie to the meme that's being pushed by some that, Democrats are disengaged, they don't care, they don't even know there's an election going on, they're down on Newsom, et cetera, et cetera. You don't get these kind of numbers when the Democratic electorate is disengaged. And one poll this week that I saw indicated that 92% of Democrats said they had either voted already or were planning to vote.
So that suggests that all the polling that had happened before that speaks to what you were talking about, this idea that Democrats were not energized or paying attention, isn't true.
I've run Democratic campaigns for almost 40 years, and one thing I can tell you that is a truism, and every Democratic consultant will tell you this, Democrats always tune in late to campaigns. There are reasons for that. There are demographic reasons, sociological reasons, but Democrats always tune in late to campaigns. That's just a fact. And in this case, of course, Republicans are more mobilized. They're trying to commit regicide. They're trying to kill the king. They're the moving party in this thing, if you wanted to use legal terminology.
Right.
Democrats are just trying to protect the status quo, but Democrats are voting, and they're voting in droves. And that is good news for the anti-recall campaign.
You've said from the beginning that Democrats should not have an alternate candidate on the ballot like the one you faced in Lieutenant Governor Cruz Bustamante when Governor Davis was recalled. But some Democrats believe you shouldn't skip the second half of the ballot. Here's what KCBS Radio's Doug Ose said about that this week. He said Democrats who leave the replacement question blank may end up feeling like those who couldn't bring themselves to vote for Hillary Clinton when they awoke on November 4th, 2016, to President-elect Trump. Is he right?
No, he's wrong. I wouldn't listen. I mean, with all due respect to journalists, I wouldn't listen to journalists on this. I would listen to people who actually went through the 2003 recall, okay? And the fact is, keeping a significant Democrat off of that ballot is to some degree what's going to save Gavin Newsom. And with respect to voters wanting to vote for a replacement candidate, be my guest. If they can find any one of the 9 Democrats that are running who have filed is even remotely qualified to be governor of the largest state, then they can vote for one, right? But it's not going to make any difference because Gavin Newsom is going to beat the recall, and it doesn't matter what the replacement candidates get in terms of votes.
Will Donald Trump ultimately support or endorse Larry Elder, and would that help him or hurt him in this state?
Well, God, I certainly hope that Donald Trump will shoot off his mouth again and endorse Larry Elder. I mean, he got 34% of the vote here in 2020. That was last year, the last time I checked my calendar. I mean, Trump is toxic in California. And one of the problems with some of the other Republicans that have been running for months before Larry Elder got in is that they're all connected back to Trump in some ways. He's a death knell in California politically. So I certainly hope that he doesn't resist his urge to weigh in on every political matter. And I certainly hope he comes out and endorses Larry Elder. Be my guest.
Gary South, always appreciate your insight. Thank you.
Thanks much. Good to talk to you.
Coming up, it's better to be alive than be governor. I spoke with former Congressman Doug Ose about how he's recovering following the heart attack that ended his campaign. Last week, former California Representative Doug Ose suspended his campaign for governor following a heart attack. Now he's throwing his weight behind Assemblyman Kevin Kiley. Mr. Ose joins us now to explain his endorsement. Mr. Ose, so good to talk to you. Before we get into your announcement, your endorsement announcement this past week, first of all, just want to start off, how are you feeling?
Nikki, you are so gracious. This is why you're a success. I'm going to just thank you for asking. I've had the most boring 10 days of my life that immediately followed the absolutely most frightening 3 hours of my life. I'm stable. I've got a lot of work ahead of me, some surgery in all likelihood, but I got great doctors, and God gave me another day.
We're so happy to hear that. All right, let's get into the recall and your announcement this past week endorsing Assemblyman Kevin Kiley. Why should voters select Kevin Kiley if Governor Newsom is recalled?
So I've sat in these chairs for 25 years dealing with these questions. There's so many different characteristics that lead to successful governance. I think Kevin possesses the 3 most important. Number 1, he's very intelligent. Number 2, he is curious about how things work, how to make them better. And then finally, one of the most important one, which is never talked about, but is absolutely critical. Kevin's got the temperament for dealing with all the ebbs and flows. I mean, it's a pressure-packed job that he's now asking us to give him. You have to have the right temperament, and Kevin's got it.
Considering what the polling looked like, you were polling pretty low. Why should voters listen to you?
I was that other guy, the one that you listed as others. So I always, look,
You're talking about the 40% undecided.
Yeah, I was
the 40%
undecided.
What would you say to the 40% undecided?
Look, the 24 hours in a campaign is a lifetime. And, we had things that we were spun up. Literally, they started the day after I had my heart attack. I pulled those things down. I'm not going to try to explain relative success or failure at this point because I've shut everything down. I will tell you, these people are applying for a job to run a $250 billion a year corporation on behalf of 40 million people. This is serious business. Experience matters. And I think Kevin has the best set of tools for dealing with this. Kevin Kiley.
I'm going to ask you to break Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment, thou shalt not speak ill of a fellow Republican. Some of the Republicans in this recall race have been calling for Larry Elder, the person seen as the front runner right now, to drop out after comments surfaced that he made about women, allegations from his former fiance, and just some of his positions. Do you think Mr. Elder should drop out, and do you think these other Republicans should be calling for that?
I think people just need to sit on their ballot for a while, Nikki. I mean, this recall at the request of the Democrats has been significantly accelerated. I think there's information we'll know next week that we don't know this week about any number of the candidates. And the week after that, we'll know more about them even more. So my suggestion to everybody is just sit on your ballots. Let this information come out. You don't have to decide today. You literally don't. You don't have to decide today. You have time. So be patient. This is a very important question.
Former Congressman and gubernatorial candidate in the recall, Doug Ose, we appreciate your time here on Inside California Politics, and we wish you a speedy recovery as well.
Nikki, thank you. It's better to be alive than be governor. Just trust me on that. So,
Thank you.
You can see more of our interviews online. Just head to your local station's website and click on Inside California Politics. Thanks for watching Inside California Politics.
We'll see you back here next weekend.